Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of System Link, our live gaming podcast featuring, as always, my co-host Mike Hazelton from the Xbox Guide. Good evening, Mike. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Last one of the year.
Yep, that's a wrap, isn't it? Last System Link of 2024. Yeah. And my goodness, have we got a show packed full of jam. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. A lot of it centered on the Game Awards. I think we can just sort of kick off and say Game Awards 2024 10th anniversary was a barnstormer. It was a really good show. There was a lot of genuinely left field announcements that I certainly hadn't predicted in any sense. Some things that I never thought I'd see sequels to. I think Akami coming back, Capcom firing on all cylinders there. We'll get to it. We'll save it. We'll get there. But with lots to unpack tonight, we'll also be talking a little bit about some reporting from Windows Central's Jez Corden, talking about the state of Xbox exclusives. It's been a hot topic in our conversations, kind of predicting where Xbox are at with that and what their strategy is. We'll be covering a bit of that this evening, as well as some latest sales data, talking about where subscription growth is at and some key wins for certain titles re-entering the top 10. So we'll be unpacking that later this evening. We'll kick things off with, it's got to be one of my most anticipated for 2025, and I know that you and I have such an affinity for Haze-like titles. Joseph Fares coming back with his new IP, Split Fiction, another dedicated co-op game where lovely to see as well in the announcement trailer confirmation of the Friend Pass being making a return. For anyone that isn't familiar, the Friend Pass allows one player to buy a copy of a Haze-like game. So in the past it was A Way Out and It Takes Two. And then a second player can join for free because the game mandates co-op. So essentially, one copy of the game grants access to two players. Given the fact that It Takes Two hit a 20 million sales milestone recently, so that's 40 million players that would have actually had access to it. It's pretty damn impressive for a team that's not, I don't think, particularly large. They're an independent team working with EA Originals, but still a relatively modest-sized developer. Great to see them now make a return. Off air, Mike and I talked a little bit about how we were hoping to see maybe one day a return to their A Way Out, slightly more grounded take on storytelling. But this, I mean, the medieval and sci-fi mixture, I kind of went, okay, we're going to go the other way. We're going to go full, full fantasy, full sci-fi.
At least we get a bit more variety. I don't really know if that was a criticism of It Takes Two, but because it all had to be kind of set in around the home, although we still had like the frosty level and stuff. The fact that you're going to have futuristic stuff and old timey stuff, and probably still the environmental variety should keep it a bit fresher.
Yes.
My one concern, if you can call it concern, is it just looks an awful lot like It Takes Two in terms of the they're keeping the variety of gameplay, so you can see from the trailer like loads of different stuff, like different completely different mechanics from level to level and things, which they talked about at the show as well. But it still looks like some of the mechanics from It Takes Two are being used here, which I guess is to be expected. But the difference from A Way Out to It Takes Two was huge, so I was kind of expecting they'd maybe do that again, but I'm not disappointed. It still looks great.
Yeah, it's even if it ends up being what feels like on paper more of an iterative sequel, the fact that they're leveraging those mechanics from the previous game, it's still got, like you said, the variety, the distinctness that I think is going to make it memorable. I do like the idea of being trapped in competing stories. I think narratively it's a very Joseph Fares high concept idea. But once again, centered around co-op. For us, it's just the unhinged bit with the pig here was insane. I think
offensive.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, just please, we're just murdering pigs. But the idea, I think that they're doubling down on what they know they do best. It's a developer that feel seasoned now in making games of this type. And even actually just looking, when I really sort of take the time to look at some of that footage, I'm seeing sequences there that don't seem reminiscent at all of It Takes Two, or even A Way Out at this point. The boss fights do. The sort of platform-based boss fights where you're dodging environmental damage, I think evokes It Takes Two quite a bit. But there's certain mechanics in there that I've seen that look very unique to this game, and I think that's to their credit that they've been able to push that.
No sex book in this.
No Dr. Hakeem. Yeah, it's a great loss. He's always there to come in and go, exactly! But unfortunately not this time.
Brilliantly, a bit out of place.
Brilliantly physically portrayed in motion capture by Joseph Fares. Let's never forget that Joseph Balderrama played it vocally and had to match the physical thrusting energy of Joseph Fares in a motion capture suit. So let's just never let that slide, how magical and wonderful that was. Also, Joseph Balderrama interviewed by me on Sunday.
Watch it now.
Tune in. So our next title was an absolute banger, closing out the show with Naughty Dog's new IP. Referred to, actually, some wording I thought was very interesting in this. The when they referred to Intergalactic as their next franchise. I don't know whether that necessarily was hyperbolic. I actually think that they're planning on
Yeah, no, I agree.
on
Yeah,
sitting in this world and building on it.
this is how they do it.
Yeah, this is the
They
Naughty
move
Dog
on.
way. They double down. They go in with their sort of the world they build. You've seen it with Jak and Daxter. You saw it with Uncharted. You saw it with The Last of Us. I don't think this precludes a part 3. I think Last of Us Part 3 is cooking. I wouldn't be surprised
Sorry,
if that.
bud.
Yeah. Hold on, pal.
Accept it. It's
It's
gone.
nice. It's nice. No, it's finished. No, I think it's coming next gen. I think they're going to alternate like they've done with Uncharted in the past. Because we had I forget which the order was. I think it was Uncharted 3, Last of Us, and then Uncharted 4, I think, was the sequence. I think Last of Us Part 1 was built in there. So there is precedent for them either going to a 2-team setup, or I think what they've done now that the multiplayer game's been binned off, they're a 1-team studio again. So I think they're going to continue. Yeah. This has been in development for 4 years, 250 people working on it. So we're far in. I wouldn't be surprised if this is closer than we think, actually. I think this is probably like maybe end of 25, maybe to compete with Fable. Maybe if that ends up being the sort of the sort of mash up from the two.
I mean, this was my highlight of the show, like hands down. Just such a good trailer. I mean, they've been getting ridiculous criticism, which Naughty Dog unfortunately attracts.
Usual predictable stuff, right?
Yeah, but just I love the way they got the brands in the trailer, the music, which they're partnering with a few people as well on the game. And I think if they can replicate this kind of thing in the gameplay, it would just be an incredible franchise. I felt the gameplay bits, I don't know if they were actual gameplay, but the bits that evoked gameplay were the weakest bits for me. But that's just we need to see extended. Gameplay to really judge.
That's something that Naughty Dog, again, when you think about Part 2 and some of their E3 showings, they're not shy about doing an extended gameplay trailer. It might be edited, you might see like, it goes from cutscene to gameplay, but they are happy to show you systems and they'll show you the HUD and you will get to that. This very much, obviously, I think is a teaser at this point. But I sort of, in reading the PlayStation blog after the show, confirmation that it's actually set in the 1980s, it's like an alternate future, where space travel has evolved faster in this version of humanity. And that's why you still got CDs as the sort of retro tech, and then Porsche as the brand. And, it's definitely sort of, they're going for that alternate history take with this, which will give it a sense of it being a bit more grounded, which is their style. Even Uncharted with its, insane relics and weird Nazi zombie characters, there was always elements in there that felt more grounded and more believable. It's definitely their house style. Great differentiation too. It couldn't be like further removed from some of their recent output. Even things like for spin-offs like Lost Legacy, for Uncharted, this which was a very light, over-the-top adventure. This couldn't be more removed from that, and I think that's to their credit that they've decided to just go all in on a completely different IP.
And it is like The Last of Us. Not, I wouldn't say like Uncharted, but like Last of Us. It's like cinema quality.
Yeah.
This cutscene and the world they're building. You could easily see it having a TV show or a film, like made in this world. And the game's not even out yet, so it's really speaks volumes about their quality of storytelling.
Yeah, and they've immediately grounded it. They've got the recognised, like Adidas is in there, Porsche. They've got recognisable brands, the Pet Shop Boys. So that now, I mean, I don't think they're not stupid. They're probably looking at it thinking in a couple years' time, we'll get an HBO adaptation of this thing going to spread the word and give it some brand awareness. Just really exciting from them and a really surprising moment, I think, in the Game Awards for them to do that. Although Jeff has a history of securing a Naughty Dog reveal. We've seen that a couple of times before. Big Manny in the chat just mentioning he loves alternate history stuff. Yeah, it was always been like Man in the High Castle on Amazon Prime is one of my favourite shows. Sort of that alternate take on what happened in World War II. Anytime that we sort of mess with history and we do a kind of what if, I'm always kind of interested in that from a storytelling perspective. So, definitely a win. Really exciting. This one, again, was a complete surprise. Okami 2 from Capcom. Didn't think this sequel would ever come to light. This felt a bit like a sort of a one and done from them. Well regarded. It's had an HD re-release since its original version, but yeah, this was a real surprise. We obviously didn't see no gameplay evoked here, but certainly in terms of the vibe and the art style, it's very faithful to what that original game was. Looks
Yeah,
stunning.
this is one where obviously that it has there's an audience at the Game Awards, but this is one we would have really wanted to see it at like a keynote thing at
Mm.
E3 where you've got the fans in the audience. I think it would have just been incredibly received because it's like you say held in really high regard. And I wonder if the HD release was a bit of a litmus test for this one. I just bought it because it's just gone on sale. I think it's like £4 on Xbox, and I had it on PS2.
Oh, it's a bargain.
PS2 originally. So yeah, looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah, great. I mean, just Capcom just firing on all cylinders right now. Like, they are on it. Given the success of Resident Evil, given what we've seen now, obviously, with them dipping into their other franchises. Onimusha was in there as well. So, like, they are cooking right now. They're looking good. We also have Elden Ring coming back with a co-op enabled experience, a Souls game in multiplayer, which you sent me something earlier today that really caught my attention. Mike, do you want to talk through what the sort of little reveal was here, subsequent to the announcement?
I don't really know the justification. I couldn't decipher the justification behind it, but I saw it and I thought, this because neither you nor I have played Elden Ring, and as far as I know from your perspective,
No,
but I haven't. I was considering getting it for Christmas, but it's holding its price a bit too well for me to do that. But I was thinking you and I were playing co-op, and then this news piece dropped saying it will be a 3-player co-op game or a 1-player co-op game, but not 2 players.
Yeah,
which is weird, and I kind of get that from a 3-player perspective. That there's certain bosses or raids or whatever that you'll be doing that need 3 people, and if there's 2 of you, like, it's a bit where they maybe don't want to scale the challenge for 2 people, which I can understand because so much of those games are about like getting the difficulty just exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
But then to allow people to play on their own is weird.
Just bizarre. The fact that they're not, when they support 3 players, just not allowing duos to go in there, just feels like an arbitrary choice. I can't believe that there's something grounded there in like the game design or some restriction technologically why that would be an issue. If you can allow 3 players, surely scaling it back wouldn't be a problem. Just has it been? Is this a mistranslation from an interview? Like, are we just just really odd? I hope someone...
Yeah, hopefully it's a case of 3 people is the best way to play, but you can play it with 2 or 1.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so very much.
It'd be a weird one.
Well, that would definitely affect my interest in this if there wasn't the option for just a 2-player co-op. I think would be nice. But I also think, just putting that aside for a minute, I don't have a particular affinity for the Souls games at all. Anything like Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, I've not really been into. Tried Bloodborne, wasn't really my thing. Found the repetition really tricky. The respawning enemies really tough. But I've always kind of had this, because it's so well regarded, it's so popular, I have always had a sort of want to give it a go and get in there. And I kind of looked at Sekiro at first, then saw it was single player, and then I wasn't sure I wanted to dip in solo. I saw Elden Ring as a possible way in. Is Elden Ring, does it support co-op? Is it like Dark Souls where you can, or Bloodborne where you can jump in? Or it's like jump in for a section, isn't it? It's not like a seamless drop in, drop out.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I was the same, but because I've heard such good things about the world. It was similar to The Witcher, where I want to experience the story of The Witcher without having to play the game, kind of. So, yeah, I want to see the world of Elden Ring, and I think I have generally enjoyed games that have a really high difficulty.
Well, yeah, we've never shied away from a challenge, certainly in some of our co-op stuff, have we? So, yeah, interesting. Big Manny just coming into chat confirming that Elden Ring does have co-op. You can get people to join your world for bosses. Okay, so it's not like the open world exploration or doing like quests, etc. It's just for the boss fights. Okay. Yeah, I want it to be a bit more fully fledged, which is what I think Night Rain is shooting for. Just please let us play 2-player. That would be lovely. Please, Capcom, if we can... Not Capcom, sorry, Bandai Namco, if we can sort that out. Come on, From Software, get it done. A trailer that actually I thought landed really well was for The Outer Worlds 2. openly acknowledging perhaps the slightly dated engine that they had it running on for the original game. There's a quote in the middle of this trailer that just says "more graphics," which is a great gag and a good a sort of nod to some of the commentary and critical reception to the original game. Looks really polished. Looks ready. Actually, I think this is coming sooner than we think.
Next year, isn't it?
Mm.
But then I saw separately. This isn't on our list, but there was supposed to be a first-party Xbox game that's moved from next year to 26. Rumored. Presumably not this, because this has just been shown. But yeah, there were suggestions that this has been put in to fill a space that something else has vacated, maybe
that we maybe didn't know
hopefully
about.
Not Fable, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it was or South of Midnight or something. But
Yeah.
one of those that we haven't seen that much on.
I wondered if
so
it
far.
might end up being something like State of Decay 3 or Perfect Dark that wasn't announced for next year.
Yeah, I don't know why that would be considered a delay. But yeah, I guess internally.
It was the wording, the internal delay part. I wasn't referring to it as being like a sort of open release date that then is pushed. I think it seemed to be the suggestion was that it was something internal that wasn't actually announced for next year, but was earmarked maybe for a developer direct. Maybe.
I can't believe you would ever expect Perfect Dark to come out.
It's just not ready
State of
yet.
Decay 3. I mean, yeah, it's got to come out sometime.
Yeah, eventually.
But yeah, this looks. I need to go back and try and finish the first one. We've talked about Outer Worlds, maybe not on this show, but something about it just didn't quite click. I think it was the characters, the companions. I wasn't motivated enough to do anything. I found the gunplay quite satisfying, but like I didn't particularly want to go and explore in the same way that I do in Starfield or some other RPGs. I just for some reason didn't get that curiosity with it, but I liked the world and I liked the shooting, so I'm definitely looking forward to it.
I remember playing the original. I really enjoyed the world design, but I did struggle with some of the combat mechanics. I found the AI a bit sort of basic, and I know it's an RPG. You're not really expecting it to be too detailed in that sense, but yeah, the combat never really clicked for me. That was the thing that stopped me. My sort of the feel of it was kind of a bit of a barrier for me. So, but I'm definitely intrigued, and it's so low stakes when you're jumping into something like this with it being Game Pass day one. So we're going to get that, confirmed.
PlayStation day one.
Yeah, is it confirmed for PlayStation day one?
Yeah.
So I mean, and we'll save it. We'll get there, but there's existing franchises like Doom and The Outer Worlds, which have appeared elsewhere. I would have expected to continue.
But yeah, for me, there was absolutely no doubt whatsoever that this was going to be PlayStation day one. I don't know why people were surprised to see that.
Yeah,
on there
it's
and,
such manufactured anger. It's so silly.
And because Avowed is exclusive, we haven't heard anything about an Avowed release date for PlayStation. I expect we will, but the fact that it hasn't been announced yet, but they announced Indiana Jones ahead of the.
Yeah.
We would have heard about Avowed now, you would think, if it was coming to PlayStation.
Yeah, for sure.
3 months after. So yeah, it was, for me, it's expected in the same way that Elder Scrolls will be day one on PlayStation.
Yep.
But because we've heard a concrete statement in the past. We've talked about it being wishy-washy, but we had a concrete statement that existing IPs will be multi-format.
Doom.
So
I didn't bat an eyelid when Doom: The Dark Ages was announced for PlayStation. It made total sense.
People were annoyed because when PlayStation hosted the video on YouTube, they took the Xbox.
Did they?
So
did it just say PlayStation?
Said, yeah.
Did it even say PC? Did they get rid of that as well? It was just PlayStation.
No, I don't think it did. I think it was
That's
just
so funny. How wet. They were obviously someone mandated
It's great.
That. It's great though, isn't it? I know. Just sort of subtle shittiness. That's great.
But it's, to be fair, and we'll get to it again, and I'll probably be quite critical of Xbox, but I prefer them doing this than what they've done in the past, where they do that. They put Xbox and PC, and then in the Xbox Wire post, or someone interviews Phil Spencer 2 months later, and he says, "Yeah, it's coming to PlayStation," or They don't tell us explicitly when they announce the game that it's coming to PlayStation. But I do think if it had been at the Xbox keynote, they wouldn't have put PlayStation on. I think it's because it's a multi-format show
event.
Yeah. So, but it'll be interesting to see if they change that tactic. Because it's although there's obviously hype that they got from Indiana Jones being announced for PlayStation later. I think from a consumer perspective, it's better if it's just announced when they announce the game. But
Especially if
I
you
get
know,
they don't.
if you know that it's coming and this isn't like a late port attempt that you make far late into development. If you knew this was cooking for a while, it's underhand to keep it a secret. Just tell people where your game's going to be. Just do it out of the gate.
I think so. At least, I get why they don't want a PlayStation logo at their keynote. They don't want it shown on the end slate of the trailer. I understand that, but then just at least like immediately after the show, clarify the platforms.
Yes.
Rather than leaving people.
It's actually where you look at stuff like Outer Worlds 2. Wasn't surprised at all it was coming to PlayStation. Same again with Doom, as we've mentioned. The fact that Hellblade didn't come to PlayStation day and date was then odd to me, given that because of the history with PS4.
We'll get to Jez Corden, but so I don't forget, he also said that they now view that as a mistake that it didn't come to PlayStation, which I think is well, I don't know if it's fair because I don't know. I think the game just did badly, and I don't know how much. Obviously, they would have sold some more if it was on PlayStation, but I think it's just the quality of the game isn't where it needed to be.
But visually, it looked like a PlayStation game. It looked like a PlayStation
and it was on PlayStation first before Xbox. So based on their own, like we just said, the concrete rule, it should have been on PlayStation. It was weird that it wasn't.
Yeah, just bizarre. Obviously, we'll get there. I know we're going to be segueing into that shortly. I wanted to just throw in a mention as well of something I was actually a bit lukewarm on from the show, which was the sort of gameplay reveal for Borderlands 4. I actually have historically really enjoyed this series. Borderlands 3 in particular is one of my favourite co-op shooters ever, actually. I really enjoyed that game. And still playing it and still discovering new quests and still going through. I don't think this was a particularly good trailer, actually.
We said this about the first one.
Yes, agreed.
To follow it up with another wet trailer is pretty...
It's odd.
Poor, isn't it?
And I think with this one in particular, it's like they haven't quite decided what game they're making. Elements of it seemed weirdly serious for this world.
Yeah, that's probably the thing.
And it sort of tonally was all over the place. This sort of oppressive new force with this sort of, copy and paste soldiers. This seemed like it was setting up something really sort of heightened and high stakes. And then we cut to the Vault Hunters looting stuff. It just, I think tonally this one's a bit all over the place. And I didn't have a particular attachment to it and what was going on. I think the world design looked lovely. It's just to go from that sort of very, very overtly dramatic opening to a midget doing a head spin and then 4 armored heroes. Just felt tonally a bit wonky for me.
I think the film has also damaged my perception of the brand a bit. Like I see the iconic Borderlands stuff, and I just think, I don't know, it makes me die a bit inside because of the film. Like I don't think it's done it any favors.
No, if anything, it's definitely affected it. This, by the way, the announcement for this was so poorly timed, where they were sort of hoping, I think, to leverage Borderlands, the film's success, and when it absolutely tanked a week later to announce Borderlands 4 at Gamescom, was just the worst possible timing.
It's tough though, because like Microsoft should have definitely done that with Fallout. They should have had something Fallout ready. Because imagine if they'd launched a new Fallout game when the TV series dropped.
Even a 10-hour spin-off or something, like a small little self-contained thing.
Obsidian to do something.
It would have been maybe they weren't as confident that it would have landed as big. Because like there's been a couple of The Last of Us, it's HBO, you kind of knew that was always going to do well. But Amazon Prime with a video game adaptation, I don't think was a guaranteed safe bet.
Yeah, but I feel like from when they first, other than the changes that they made to the lore for The Last of Us, you just show like a piece of artwork for the series, and people would go crazy for it. And it's the same with Fallout. You show a set from Fallout from the TV series, and people were going crazy for it.
Yeah,
the first time they showed anything for Borderlands, the film, people were like, what the hell have you done?
What the hell is this? Yeah.
And actually, surely they could have gauged, like, they're going to do a good job with Fallout, or they're going to,
Yeah, that's
and
fair.
get something ready.
Because I kind of also think sometimes I forget just how big of an audience Fallout has as well. I don't mean the show, but the game. how much reverence there is for that IP. I think because I don't particularly play the games, I think I'm a bit removed from it and forget actually that the reason the show blew up is because this series has an enormous following. It's so well regarded.
And it probably, like, how long would it have taken them to make the TV series? Like, from the start, probably like 3 years, from like planning it, at least.
Yeah,
Which, you could easily get an Obsidian to do a game in a Fallout 4 engine in 3 years. I would have thought. It's a shame.
Yeah, an odd one for sure. On the flip, though, a trailer that I thought landed really well was The Witcher 4. Didn't expect to see this. I thought this was still sort of a ways off, perhaps further along than we thought.
It's crazy. It's like every one of these trailers, every time we go to it, I just think, what did the anti-woke mob say about this? And it's such a shame. It's like ruining gaming that
is the first
you have a really
thought.
good trailer and it's like half the reaction is because you're not playing as Geralt anymore, or potentially not playing as Geralt anymore, and it's like,
but it's
tiring.
It's just bizarre to me that it matters so much.
Because it's not a new thing. I get some of the stuff about Dragon Age, and when the storylines are kind of I don't know if they're shoehorned, because I'm sure it's something the writers wanted to write, but I understand some of the reaction, but to stuff like you're playing as a woman or you're playing as a black character or whatever, you can't play as a fat white guy, or just like, it looks so good. And there's nothing new in here from that perspective that should make people angry.
It just is the lack of sort of self-reflection to figure out, well, why does this irk you so much? Why does this get under your skin? And why, therefore, is it then so threatening that others might like it? It's almost like the idea of, well, that if I don't feel like this is made for me, it shouldn't be made. And that's odd. That is really strange thinking, and it's gatekeeping, isn't it? It's just sort of saying, well, this was always my thing. You've changed my thing into something that's for someone else, and I don't like that my thing has changed. Then don't buy it. Why expend the energy? It's just age-old cyclical
they will
thing.
buy it.
They will, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. They'll leave a shitty Steam review, but play for 200 hours. That's just...
Yeah.
It's a rolling contradiction. I hope that discourse doesn't actually take away from the fact that as an in-engine trailer, brilliantly directed, set up the world really well, established the character. I know obviously it's not gameplay, but it wasn't a CG trailer. It was in-engine. It definitely evoked the tone and the kinds of things you'd be doing as a good CG or in-engine trailer should do. It should be evoking gameplay and the feel, as opposed to just being, the one I always cite as being dreadful is that State of Decay 3 reveal, which was the sort of zombie deer in the snow.
Well, the Intergalactic trailer said it's cinematic, but it looked like gameplay.
Yeah.
So
certainly the bit at the end with the creature that rises up, the way that camera panned down, that looked like it was
even
setting up the gameplay sequence.
Even in the ship, I think they were using elements from
sure.
gameplay in there. But yeah, this I think it's also less important for a sequel, where you know what the game is going to be. All people will want to see is how good does it look, basically graphically. Yes. So we could just wait for a gameplay demo for that. But obviously they've got the big stuff out of the way, who you're playing as, and kind of what the key story elements are. So.
Yeah, no, it was really nice to see actually how much time we spent with this. It was in like an extended trailer as well. It wasn't just like a quick tease. CD Projekt Red obviously having been cooking on this for a while, since I imagine Phantom Liberty, the Cyberpunk expansion, was developed and shipped. So I'm really excited to see this. I do have a sort of a feeling that I've only played The Witcher 3 once, and I sort of hard Brexit on it quite quickly because I didn't like the feel. I never played the next gen version that I know was patched. I sort of played the original version. So I've always been having it it's been sitting with me that it's a game that perhaps I should give another chance to. I don't know whether maybe it's just a bit too far removed. I might have missed the boat. I feel the same about Baldur's Gate 3. I feel like I missed the boat on that one. Just in terms
we
of
still got time
co-op.
with that. Come on, it's not.
Do you think
that's
it's time
not
to
old?
cook?
We'll get back to that.
Yeah.
Which I was similar with Witcher 3. I think I've restarted it 3 times because when I've gone back in, to try to carry on from where I left off. I just haven't got a clue what I'm doing, and the combat is quite, for me, the combat is quite difficult to pick up. But are they working on a separate HD next gen current gen version, or was it just got patched and that's it? Because I thought it was rumored that they were
doing something else with it. I think it's a next gen patch, but not like any kind of remake. I don't believe was on the cards. I know there might have been a rumor about that. But I'm tempted to give it a revisit just to kind of see how it lands, especially if this is probably quite far out still. I kind of feel like this is 2026. I don't feel like that's a next year game. I think they're gonna cook on that for a bit. May end up being next gen actually, if the timing on that works. I could see this becoming a sort of early next gen title. That I do think that the publishers themselves and alongside the platform holders need to think about the migration of players. They need to look at the fact that only half of PS4 players upgraded, and consider what they're going to do.
Depends on the entry price though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If PS6 is 800 quid,
is the PS5
I don't think you can expect. I don't think you can expect people to migrate even for like The Witcher. But then a big problem with Cyberpunk was they were trying to do cross-gen, and it badly affected the game. So
which makes me wonder if this will be something mandated by shareholders, which they say they don't play it. I don't imagine. I just can't see a Series S version of this existing. I just think it's going to be. I think it's going to be next gen. But we will see. Lock it in.
Here first.
Heard it here first. System Link with zero sources. Let's lock it in. So we've touched on it a little bit, but the big thing on what we wanted to kind of cover tonight, sort of outside of the Game Awards, was Jez Corden, his commentary recently about Xbox exclusives, how essentially the concept of them is going away. We've seen Satya Nadella talking about redefining what it means to be an Xbox fan. Phil Spencer coming out and saying, there's no sort of specific red line. So I think between sort of his Jez Corden somewhat circumstantial reporting and then the sort of more direct quotes, and of course then the big one being the Xbox ad campaign, we see definitely, I think, a story to be built from this, that there is a major shift in their strategy. What is the feeling on this? Because exclusives are shifting consoles for Nintendo. First of all, we know that works. We know that obviously PlayStation have now dipped a toe in PC as well. They're obviously looking at their data, seeing the adoption rate for their single-player games on PS5, wanting to try and get a bigger audience than them on PC. It seems like this is where the industry is going. Crossplay kind of started this, but it does certainly sort of... It just makes you wonder what the intent is for Xbox making a console now. Is it to just be a giant advert for Game Pass now? Because there's no reason to buy. There's less and less reasons, given that the feature sets are kind of crossing over now as well. PS Portal can do streaming. PS Plus can do cloud streaming. There's less and less differentiation between the platforms. It's really coming down to the games again. And if the games on Xbox are going to be everywhere, you sort of look at that and go, well, why the hell don't you buy a PlayStation then? Get their exclusives. Xbox Ones will come there eventually. Or is it... So therefore... Does the counterbalance of that be, well, they're seeing the subscriber growth? We saw from Matt Piscatella, the gaming sub spending is up 8% versus 2023. Is that where they're heading? Huge question. I know I just rambled for about a minute, but it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, we talked. So firstly, on the 8%, I was actually quite underwhelmed by that figure, because the Game Pass itself was... I don't know what the price increase is as a percentage, but the price has increased by a significant amount since last year. Mm-hmm. So that alone, you would think, accounts for a significant percentage uplift. And then you've got Black Ops, which could have, driven a bit. I was surprised it wasn't more than that, to be honest. But on Xbox, so Jez Corden said, I think... there was like a soundbite, or not a soundbite, he wrote it, but it was like, no more console exclusives on Xbox. And then, like, subsequently he went on to say, list basically the things that you said, no more red lines, all this stuff. But it was more like, from here, you can't expect anything to be console exclusive. But he didn't say, like, someone at Microsoft has told me no games released from here will be
Yeah, it was
console
sort of
exclusive.
very conveniently vague, wasn't it? Because it then allows that wiggle room for him to be right regardless, which I always find a little
Yeah,
bit odd
because
with that style of reporting.
I,
But anyway,
yeah, so I think Xbox's key thing will be ease of use because it's easier to use than PlayStation. The UI is better and it's simpler, and the controllers are simpler for casual gamers to use, in my
hmm
opinion. The integration with PC is simpler for people to get their head around, and they can use the app on their PCs and
well,
stuff.
yeah, Play Anywhere is the big one. I mean, that's a huge. There's a big differentiation there. I know I said about how a lot of the lines are blurred in terms of feature and offering, but Xbox Play Anywhere, to be in a lot of their games where you buy them on console, you just get a PC version with it. That's
Yeah,
yeah.
and everyone talks about, everyone's got to have whatever ridiculous graphics cards to. It's as if the choice is Xbox or massively high-end PC, but it's you can have an Xbox and quite a shit PC and still play some of the games that you get on Game Pass.
hmm
And so, like Balatro Game of the Year nomination, presumably you don't need a massively high-end PC to be able to play that. And obviously you've got the cloud streaming, which kind of brings in more people. Compared to PlayStation, I think they'll do the same thing. They'll have a cheap SKU, so that it can compete with the Switch
hmm
2 pricing. Not that we know what that will be, but um, and I think that will be their differentiator. Even where there's features that are crossing over with PlayStation, there aren't so many exclusives. I think something like Intergalactic, which looks incredible to me, you will get people buying on PlayStation to play that.
Yeah.
Certainly, if it's next gen, I imagine it'll be cross gen. But if it was next gen, you'll get people upgrading for it. And Xbox haven't had that. Whether Fable will do it or not, and whether that will be enough to start, enticing people, I think it will be more the overall package with Xbox.
Mm.
Game Pass, ease of use, price,
Backwards
integrations.
compatibility, I suppose, as well. There's the other
Yeah,
side of it. Yeah, I think that's fair. Especially if you invested in the ecosystem and you like the way it's presented, like you mentioned the UI, I think there's certain comfortability with that if you're familiar with the way it operates. I suppose maybe they're looking at consoles as sort of like it's a pillar, it's a part of their strategy, but they're not in the console business to win the console business. I feel like they're sort of stepping back from the idea of it being a sort of sales
yeah. It's still
race anymore for them.
it's still 20 million consoles or whatever. That's 20 million people who have spent money on a significant amount of money on an Xbox and probably feel obligated to buy games for it and play on it because we've talked in the past. Once you've bought a game, you feel like I need to play that because I just spent 50 quid on it or
Mm.
whatever. Um, so and I strongly believe those people will be the ones that spend the most money as opposed to the people that are playing on cloud. Because they've kind of got that investment and they see it every time they go in their living room. Um, so yeah, I agree. I think it will just be a pillar, and they've said Game Pass isn't their key. That doesn't make the most money for
No.
them. It's not like that's holding their business up. It's still, like probably Activision now, but
Yeah.
general revenue
And also
from
like
gaming.
the cut from their store as well from digital
Yeah,
sales. So that and
exactly.
having a console that advertises that makes sense. Yeah, I don't think for one second I think that it shows that they're gonna exit the space with this strategy. I don't think that's the answer here or the likely outcome. It was more just playing the devil's advocate to the strategy. Is that will this cause people to now just hold off and just get the inevitable PlayStation release because they're already going that way?
Yeah,
Um,
for me, if that like everything started going multi-platform for me, if the cloud gaming got to a point where it was good enough, then I wouldn't buy a home console. I would just play on cloud,
right.
and I would be relatively happy to do that. But it's not there for me yet.
Yeah.
And I know some people it is there for them, or they've got the internet speed and the setup at home, or so that latency is not an issue. When I've used it, being able to directly compare it with Series X, it's massively inferior, and
Right.
so it's not good enough for me to do that. But in 5 years, 10 years, certainly in 10 years, I will think, why am I spending probably by then £1,000 on a console when I can literally just play it on my TV and it looks exactly the same.
and feels exactly the same as well. Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah,
it will be there
totally.
in 10 years, won't it?
I then, yeah, no, you're right. Certainly, infrastructure-wise, it'll be much more stable, right? I wonder then, actually, and this has come up before when we've talked about this, the idea of Game Pass. If basically every game on Xbox is actually going to be timed exclusive, because there will be an element of that. There's not many that are day and dating with PlayStation right now, and I don't see evidence of that happening outside of their established franchises like Outer Worlds or Doom. Even if stuff eventually comes to PlayStation, there seems to be that, however long or short that window is, exclusivity. So that's perhaps where Game Pass becomes marketed as the thing which, like, well, you want to get this game now, be part of the conversation day one. Game Pass is your way in for that. There might be value in that. That's a slightly enticing thing for customers, certainly.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't know why people don't view timed exclusivity as more of a big deal, because especially if it's not announced, like Avowed, it hasn't been announced. Fable, it hasn't been announced. Perfect Dark, like we don't know how. Like you can't assume that Fable is definitely going to come to PlayStation. I don't think if you're like the world's biggest Fable fan, you would be buying an Xbox to play Fable.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think, oh, I'll get it when it's on PlayStation in a year, because we don't know that, and there's no, just because Jez Corden says there aren't any console exclusives, we haven't heard from Xbox or PlayStation that it's going to come. And I
also think I think for a lot of people, they see that Fable's coming out, even if we don't know about an eventual PlayStation port in a year's time, they'll see that Fable's out. I want to play Fable now. So even if it's coming to PlayStation a year, 6 months, 2 years later, they want to get it when it's available. And the way you get it, it's on Xbox. So
I don't think the PC audience is a bit different, because they're used to waiting for games, and there's so much more to play on PC. And GTA is the prime example. Rockstar just don't care enough to put it on PC day and date. They will expect. Well, they do it the other way. They expect people to buy it on their consoles, and then buy it again on PC like a year later. They've got two sales. Yeah, but yeah, I don't think it's as cut and dry as if it's not console exclusive, then it loses all its appeal, and it's basically not worth bothering with. If it's like Death Stranding has obviously come to Xbox. We had no idea it was coming. It was completely out of the blue. But if you wouldn't say, oh well, now let's go back and rewrite all those articles saying, isn't Death Stranding a great PlayStation exclusive? Because like however many years later it's been,
and we have seen enough evidence of it going the other way. Sifu, Stray, both those games have ended up migrating over. I never thought Death Stranding for 1 minute would come to Xbox. So I think it just shows, if anything else, that there's just such a blurred line now between those platforms. You get to go with just the controller you like or the feature set that it offers. Like I've got a lot of backwards compatible games. So much like being in the Apple ecosystem, where you sort of bought in with them, you bought an Apple TV and you bought the AirPods to go with your iPhone. You're in that ecosystem because that's where you want to be. Xbox is creating an ecosystem now beyond their console. And if you know that you want to have your Game Pass Ultimate, which gives you the cloud streaming, which gives you Xbox Play Anywhere on top of that, you're probably going to want the box to go with it. I'll certainly continue to be interested in buying Xboxes if the console offers me a great experience. Much like I've upgraded to the Pro. It was an iterative upgrade, yes, but I've wanted to have that best version of a PlayStation console. That has value to me. So as an Xbox owner and an Xbox fan, I'll continue to want their platform, their physical hardware, so long as they keep offering something that makes it worth the upgrade. The SSD expansion slot, the fact that it's so bloody quick, the quick resume. Those are features that matter to me, that have practically made my gaming experience better, especially at a time when time is at a premium for me. So as long as they can keep doing that, keep giving me reasons to care about it, I'll happily buy it. There's no issue there at all. I do think the idea of saying, well, Fable, we're going to announce it, it's like we did with Indie, it's going to come out, but it's going to be a year later, but you can get it today, right now, with a $10.99 sub, Xbox Game Pass standards. That's...
Well, yeah, and we've criticised them for being vague, but from an Xbox fan perspective, as someone who has an Xbox, I appreciate them being vague with Fable. I don't want to know that Fable's coming out on PlayStation a year after it's come out on Xbox. I would prefer them not to say anything at all until as late as possible, and then just say, yeah, it's coming on PlayStation next week or something.
Yeah.
That makes me think, my money's been well spent on Xbox.
Because I've invested in it, getting it early.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, yeah.
problem was with indie because it's not even fucking out
Out
yet,
yet.
and they're and it's like, well,
And
that's a bit galling, but I there's two sides to everything, and they wanted like the extra hype of it coming to PlayStation. They wanted that extra marketing beat
mhm.
before Indiana Jones came out on Xbox, and also I don't think you can ignore that when you have these timed exclusive windows, people will play them on. They'll sign up to Game Pass and play it on cloud without buying an Xbox. Like PlayStation fans, I think would be probably did with Starfield as well. They'll just
Checking it
get
out.
Game Pass through a month, try it
Yeah.
on cloud, see if it's worth buying an Xbox for, which Starfield probably wasn't. Indiana Jones got good reviews. Who knows? But that's probably is like a number of people that do use the cloud option. Is just let's try out the latest timed exclusives.
Yeah. No, I hear you. It's a very interesting time for them, and I think we'll certainly have more clarity into that going into 2025 when we start either seeing more ports announced, more transparency around Game Pass subs and numbers, and just seeing how these things continue to evolve. I see that line blurring. We've seen it with enough evidence now. There's more games than ever before that are either cross-play supported or eventually getting ports. Look at Sea of Thieves. Look at obviously what they're now doing with Indie. I think I think the challenge they now have, certainly as rival platform holders, is that because the technology itself in these consoles is so much more off the shelf, it's much less bespoke than it was in years past. It does come down to their services and things that they can offer as features within the consoles themselves to justify being into that ecosystem and wanting to invest. It's just, I suppose, Xbox, what they're doing is they're just giving you more ways to get in, just in a different context, in a different format.
Yeah, and I think next gen will be quite similar to this gen. Like the tables aren't going to turn unless PlayStation massively fuck up somehow. But I think the generation after that, I think cloud will be a lot more like in play.
Certainly for design,
If
game design will be affected by cloud as well. Like features will be
yeah,
available because they're cloud
and
supported.
AI obviously as
Yeah,
well. And if you've got, there's a server and you can play on the cloud, but you've got like an Xbox that's just on the cloud and it's your Xbox and your dashboard and all your games are on there, but it's not in your house, it's on the cloud somewhere. Like that for me, when it gets to that stage and there's no latency and all that, there's just no reason for me to have a physical box. But next gen I think will be similar.
yeah, and it also, I think that beyond this, we've kind of touched on it a little bit with some of the response to Intergalactic. Is sort of the classic console war, endless debating. Ultimately, are you buying video games on their platform of some kind? That's ultimately what they care. They sell software, and they just happen to also sell a box that has access to those services, but they just want you playing games. How you do it seems to be immaterial, and it shouldn't matter as much as it does. But brand loyalty and console war divides tend to sort of mitigate that sensibility, and it sort of becomes a bit more sort of feral in its conversation sometimes. But yeah, ultimately, I think as long as they can justify why we would want to invest in it by offering features of the console itself or the controller or services that come with it, then there'll always be reasons for people to invest, even if those numbers are a more niche group than perhaps they were 20 years ago. But it is an interesting time. I think it's just I am definitely a console gamer more than a PC gamer. So whether it's Switch, PlayStation, or Xbox, that's the experience I want to have as a gamer, and I like having the ability to just choose where my games are. I think that's a nice position to be afforded. I know it's a very first world problem to have, to be able to do this. But that's where I choose to invest my gaming time. I don't have a sort of platform loyalty in that sense. Mine's more about just the experiences, the games themselves. Where are they? Where can I play them best? And for me, because I don't want to spend a huge amount of money on my PC, that's where I end up going. But again, always up to personal taste. So I thought we'd wrap things up this evening with a little live game of the year conversation.
Okay.
I found this year quite tricky because I've been playing quite a few older titles this year. So I didn't actually have a huge amount of time with what I think a lot of people would consider those bigger hitters. I mean, you've seen Astro Bot winning Game of the Year. I haven't played Balatro. I haven't played Final Fantasy. I haven't played Mephisto? Mephisto?
Metacore.
Yeah, Metaphor. Mephisto. Just don't leave me
Nearly.
hanging. You let me have 4 attempts at the same wrong word before you corrected that. Thanks.
I thought you were doing a bit, and
I was not doing a bit. I was genuinely struggling. So, haven't played a lot of the new titles from this year. And we were talking, actually, we realised that the finals actually qualifies for this year's Game of the Year conversations because it came out. It was shadow dropped at the Game Awards.
If you go on the Game Award, yeah. Which I don't think we should, but...
No, but it's our excuse if we need to go there.
Yeah.
I'd like to... I think I probably would put the finals as my Game of the Year, I think that's where I'd end up. But I've got 2 nominations that I would put with it, a sort of third place, second place. Third was the Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition, because of how tastefully that remaster was done. Ran beautifully, and the changes they made to make it, in terms of the graphical upgrade, it wasn't just a retexture. They really did some work on a lot of the art and design in that game. It was a really thoughtful remaster, so that definitely gets a nomination. And the second one is I've just had an absolute blast with Space Marine 2. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. Between the single player, the co-op, multiplayer less so. Actually, multiplayer didn't land to me as well. But the co-op, especially the operations mode, playing with 2 other buddies, I've had such good fun with that game. It's just big, dumb fun. And there's definitely value in that for sure. So yeah, number 3 would be Beyond Good and Evil. Number 2, Space Marine 2. And then I'm going to go with the finals as my Game of the Year. I'm obsessed. I'm all in.
Okay.
Where you landed?
So I would love to put the finals in there, but I think it's a bit of a sellout, so I'm not doing that. I don't have a top 3. I'm just gonna. So number 1 for me, Still Wakes the Deep.
Cool. Yeah, cool.
Because it's one of not many. Actually, it's been quite a good year for me for completing games, but like you, I mainly older games.
Yes.
Whereas that was a day 1 on Game Pass release. I played it for probably like the first 2 weeks after it came out. And I love the storyline and the voice acting and atmosphere.
The voice acting is so good in that game. It's so well written as well. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it could be a film, like talking about Intergalactic again. It could, same sort of cinematic quality. Number 2, well, I don't know if it's number 2. Metaphor, I have to say, I was really pleased it picked up some awards at the show.
Yeah, quite a few nominations, didn't it?
I haven't played. I've played maybe 10, 15 hours. I haven't played enough to give it Game of the Year outright, but I think once I've completed it, I would look back and say that was my Game of the Year. I just can't say that at the moment, but yeah, Still Wakes the Deep just because I finished it and I've got very few complaints about that game, and I encourage anyone with Game Pass especially to try it out.
Yeah, fabulous. Nice. Well, that will wrap it up for our final episode of System Link for 2024. This has been so much fun to work on. Mike and I spend countless hours over the last few months sort of discussing and planning our headlines and our deep dives, and also sharing our sort of prep and everything for each week. Thank you, obviously, everyone, for joining in chat and seeing sort of all the sort of people picking up the show later on as a podcast on YouTube. It's been really nice to see. One thing I'd like to announce, just sort of as we end 2024, is we are going to be starting to do an audio version of System Link going into 2025. So we'll be having, as a VOD, as an upload later, an audio version on Spotify of our show. So that will be existing on a different platform for the first time. Shout out to James at Laser Quest, who I know he's told me repeatedly to my face that System Link is his favourite thing that Burly Bird Media creates. So, which is really, really cool. So I sort of shout out to him.
I agree.
And I know that he's very keen, particularly when he's at work, if it's a quiet day, to have a bit of System Link playing through those Laser Quest speakers would be really cool. So we're gonna be doing an audio version going into next year. And please, if you get a chance, keep an eye on our Discord server. We're going to be announcing our roadmap for next year. Our plan sort of for new things we're going to be developing as the company continues to evolve. This weird little side project of mine has rapidly ballooned in a way that I hadn't quite anticipated, in the best possible way, in a both stressful and fun stressful kind of way. I never really anticipated that it would have gotten to this point that it has now. With us, in the start of a few months, we've Twitch affiliate. We've been able to secure some really great interviews on some drivel. A great partnership, obviously, with yourself, Mike, and the Xbox Guide, but also launching the Burly Bird Arcade. That was something that was originally a pop-up store that became this now fully fledged installation down at Laser Quest Hemel. We very much, I'm Big Manny System Link is the best games podcast. You are so wholesome, dude. Thank you so much. That's really sweet. I hope very much that we get to continue doing what we do, because these are the kind of conversations Mike and I are having all the time anyway. And we just figured, let's stick a camera on we're doing this anyway. Let's share this with everyone, and hopefully we'll sort of continue to grow and find a wider audience as we develop. Thank you, Mike, for being a part of this. This is such a, we've known each other. I don't think we've ever actually talked about this publicly. I've known you since you were 5. So, and I was 5 also, because then it's not weird and some weird time dilation. But this has been, a 30-year friendship that continues to endure, and I'm just really grateful to you for that. So, yeah, Merry Christmas, I guess, is kind of the way we sign this off. Mike, is there anything you want to kind of wrap up with? Where can people find you? Sort of any closing thoughts? Where can people find you online?
Xboxguide.com, mainly. I will probably be doing some sort of wrap-up Game Pass feature comparing this year with last year, but it's quite a lot of work involved, so it depends how much free time I have. But yeah, it's been great to be on the podcast. I'm looking forward to, in 10 years' time, us looking back at some of these episodes because they'll be on the internet. We've lost a lot of kind of stuff that we worked on in our teens and 20s to the depths of the internet. But having this great, and the community on the Discord and everyone, all the regulars who tune in, it's really appreciated. I don't know if you want to talk about Saturday or if you want to firm things up first.
Yes, I'm happy to actually talk about that. Thank you for reminding me. So this Saturday will also be our final Burly Bird Live of 2024. Mike away this weekend. However, I will be joined by Stephen Murray, who will be in character as Nigel Knife. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, please go on the Xbox Guide YouTube channel and check out this 3-minute montage of me getting absolutely ravaged by a guy with a knife in Call of Duty that spawned this whole elaborate character and bit that's become a recurring thing. If you've ever been in our chat on a Saturday night and seen Nigel Knife's quotes where he's just ripping us to shit, mainly me and my rugby thighs, but a lot of, it is Stephen Murray, who's the voice of the Knockout City DJ from EA's Knockout City. He's sort of taken this bit and character and run with it, and he will be joining us live on Burly Bird Live this Saturday as our final stream of the year. It's going to be a lot of fun. He's been promoting it on his socials as well, which is so cool. And we're really thrilled. He's also my co-host on Dulcet Tones, our performing arts podcast. One more of those will be filmed and released before the end of the year, so we've got that cooking as well. But please join us.
I'm really looking forward.
Yeah, go on.
I'm really looking forward to seeing the voice that he. I kind of have an idea in my head of what he's going to go for.
There is a huge amount of potential that it becomes like super formal British voice.
I know.
That's definitely it. We hadn't discussed that, by the way. That hasn't been a conversation Steve and I have had, but we've got some really some really in-jokey fun stuff to wrap up the year. Mike, you said it best just then. This is a lovely tight-knit community that we've built here, and the engagement in the Discord and seeing you talk back and forth has been really, really nice. Thank you for your support, everyone. Shout out to Big Manny, just our most loyal supporter ever since the beginning, so thank you so much. But to all of you that have tuned into any of our stuff, whether it's our live streams, our podcasts, checking out our articles on Burly Bird Media, and also on the Xbox Guide as well, we continue to be grateful that you let us share our art and our creativity, and just the future's bright. We've got some fun stuff that we're cooking. Have a great break, folks. And for one final time for 2024 on System Link, we will see you next time.
See ya.